Marwadi University, Rajkot. I also have the privilege of serving as the president of HR Club and Student Council at my university. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you as the moderator of today's event. I warmly welcome you all to this edition of the Inspiring Young Leaders session organized by the Association of Indian Management School, which is famously known as AIMS. So, today's theme is Transformative Potential of Recognition of Prior Learning Framework, Part 1. This is a topic that is becoming more and more relevant, especially in the light of the National Education Policy 2020. The recognition of prior learning, which is known as RPL framework, is all about valuing the skills, experience, and knowledge that individuals already have, even if they were not gained through formal education. It is a bold step towards making education more inclusive, accessible, and flexible. This session will help us understand how RPL can open new doors for working professionals, informal sector workers, and lifelong leaders, and how institutions can integrate this power tool into their system. I'm sorry. Now it is my honor to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Bijay Bhujabal, a highly respected academician, author, and strategist. Dr. Bhujbal is currently a professor in the Faculty of Management Studies at Marwadi University, Rajkot, specializing in marketing and strategy. He brings with him over 28 years of experience in teaching, research, and leadership roles in top institutions like, for example, Lucknow University, KIIT University, and ICFAI University Group. He has authored 13 widely appreciated books in the field of business quizzing. Many of these books have received endorsement and forewords by iconic personalities like Mr. Nandan, Nilekani, Ambi Parmeshwaran, and have been appreciated by the legend like Dr. Deepak Parekh of HDFC. Apart from his academic achievement, he is also known for conducting insightful business quiz events and leadership workshop for reputed public and private sector organizations. He is also actually passionate about cycling, health, and sustainable living, which makes him not just a great teacher, but also an inspiring role model in today's world. We are truly privileged to have him with us today. Before we begin, a gentle reminder to all the attendees, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box throughout the session. We will address them during the interactive Q&A segment towards the end. And one more thing, feedback form link will be shared in the Q&A session and is available only for 15 minutes. Certificates will be issued to only those who submit the feedback form. Now, without taking any further more time, I would like to hand over the platform to Dr. Bijay Bhujbal sir, who will take us through today's topic and share his valuable thoughts on the recognition of prior learning framework and its importance in transforming the education landscape in India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Princess Sanskriti, for a wonderful introduction for the topic and for me. At the outset, good afternoon to all of you, those who are present in this Zoom session, as well as watching it live on YouTube. I'm really grateful to Association of Indian Management Schools, Dr. R.K. Patra, who is the new president of AIMS, and all the board members of AIMS, the AIMS Secretariat, Ms. Priya, who is the driving force behind this session, all the participants, and Mr. Megawat, who is the technical person, technical support hand for this session. Before I start, I will request, yeah. So the topic for today is RPL, which is known as recognition of prior learning, and what kind of transformative potential it has for starting from the individual to the collectives for the entire country. So that is the subject matter of this session as well as the next session on Wednesday. So let me start with sharing my PPT with all of you. And in the beginning, I would like to tell you that this is this knowledge sharing session is preliminary in nature. So broadly, I will take you through the core tenets of RPL, recognition of prior learning. And in the second session on Wednesday, I will take you through the mechanism of this new novel concept and its transformative potential. I trust all of you are able to see my PPT. I request Mr. Megawat to confirm or Ms. Sanskriti to confirm that it is visible.
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir,
it
it's
is.
clearing.
Great. So already the audience knows about the speaker and the moderator. And at the beginning, I must give a disclaimer that all the views or the analysis, these are all my personal views, and they are not connected with my employer, Marwadi University, Rajkot. So this RPL, recognition of prior learning, may be a bit new to some of you, but it is already in operation in India, and our country is going to take a big leap in this direction by the release of the draft guidelines by UGC, University Grants Commission, on RPL in higher education. So this guideline came not long back. It came in December last year. But before that, it is already being implemented by the skill sector councils. You can see two pictures over here. One is by PMKVY, which has so far, certified 9,000 plus Gramin DAC servers for their prior learning, for their experience. And the second one, you can see that this has been implemented by one skill sector council, and that council's name is Media and Entertainment Skills Council. So they have also operationalized RPA. But in higher education, it has not come up yet. And with the approval of the draft guidelines in its final shape by UGC, even that will also start in the higher education. So the agenda for today is twofold. One, I will give you an introduction to RPL and how education can transform education and employment. So, as the outcome of this session, you shall find answer to some of the very basic and pertinent questions, like what RPL has in store for individuals, for collectives, for organizations, employers, and so on. So I must confess that the IPL is on. So what we are discussing is RPL, not IPL. So that is the first thing to note. So on a lighter note, okay. Now, in this section of introduction, I will take you through different sources of learning, because RPL stands for recognition of prior learning. So we shall understand a little bit more about the different sources of learning. Then we shall also see how RPL is understood in other countries. We shall also look at a bit of a history so that we get the proper context of the this novel concept. May I ask Mr. Megawat that I am not visible on the slide. Is it possible for me to see myself in a small window? Okay, and let me continue in that case. Then what are So it is a formal mechanism to evaluate a person's existing knowledge, existing skills, experience.
So sorry to interrupt, but you are not audible.
Formal, non-formal, or informal learning. So we see here three sources of learning, different sources of learning. Most of us are familiar with formal, source or formal mode of learning. So I will explain these three terms for you. So RPL, as I told you, that it involves first thing is to evaluate a person's existing learning and then grant credit and recognition for the same. So that are the two main, tasks of RPL mechanism. So as I told you that learning may come from different sources and in different forms, as I told that formal, non-formal and informal. So you can see this diagram, a bit of a conceptual diagram given here. Formal learning is always organized, it is structured, it has learning objectives, and the learning is always intentional, conscious in the formal learning setup. This is on the one extreme, the other extreme is informal learning, which is not organized, there is no set objective or learning outcome, and it is never intentional from the learner standpoint. So it just happens as the learner, goes on with his or her work or experience or hobbies or interests. And now non-formal learning is somewhere in between. So as we shall see very shortly. So formal learning, as I told you, it is from recognized education providers. So that is the formal source. And formal learning involves three major steps. One is learning, then assessment of the learning, and based on the result of the assessment, certification. So those are the three processes. And it is almost universally recognized and accredited. When I say universally means, suppose an Indian university. So all the universities are autonomous, they grant degrees, they grant certificates. That doesn't make its certificates and degrees automatically recognized or accepted by the other universities. So for that, there is a mechanism called Association of Indian Universities. So there is an association where all the universities and some other institutions, they are members. So mutually they have agreed that they will recognize each other's degrees, certificates, and so on. So that is within the country. Now, at international level, similarly, there is a body which is the Association of Associations of the National Universities. So again, that mutual acceptance, mutual recognition is there. So that's why any degree or certificate that comes from these recognized education providers are universally accepted. So now let us go to the non-formal format. So as I've told you that this non-formal learning is outside the traditional educational institutions, but they are organized, they are structured and involves intentional learning. As you can see, there is a workshop going on in the photograph. So that is an example of non-formal learning. But it doesn't lead to any formal certification or universal recognition or accreditation. So it has some features of formal learning and some features of informal learning. And the examples include like workshops, short courses, professional development programs, community education, self-study, even online courses and webinars. Of course, nowadays online courses are being offered by formal universities, so they are recognized. Company training programs, trainings in arts and sports and other pursuits, youth groups or youth camps, scout programs, and so on. So most of these, learnings are nowadays assessed and certified, but not universally recognized. So that brings us to the last one, that is informal learning. So this is again outside the traditional educational institutions, and they lack structure. Both the formal and non-formal learnings, they have structure. They have objectives, outcomes, all those things are there. But informal learning lacks any kind of structure. So there is no assessment, so hence no certification and no recognition. And they are mostly experiential in nature. That means learning gained through experience. If somebody goes through his work, not necessarily work or formal profession, that could be informal hobbies and interests also. But those are also learning, those are invaluable learning. And mostly the learning is, as I told, experiential in nature and skill in nature. And we know that, what is the importance of skill in today's world. So as we can see that apart from the formal learning with which we are very familiar, these learnings from non-formal and informal sources are also equally important. And countries increasingly, all the countries in the world, they are increasingly recognizing the importance of all kinds of learnings. So while the informal learning sources are, as I told, from work experience, from volunteer work, which is basically unpaid work. Work experience is paid work, volunteering is unpaid work. Then self-taught skills, hobbies and personal projects, and through it may also come through mentorship, coaching, guidance from experienced individuals. It could also come by participating in clubs, groups, community activities. So those are the different sources of informal learning. So here I have given a brief comparison of the three types of learning. So formal learning, then we have non-formal and informal. So assessment is there in formal learning. It may or may not be there in non-formal learning, and certainly it is not there in informal learning. Then certification, formal learning, yes. Non-formal, maybe. Informal, generally it doesn't carry certification unless you consider experience certificate. But then experience certificate is a more of a kind of qualitative, based on qualitative kind of a judgment, and there is no rigorous assessment based on which experience certificates are given. So that's why those are not universally recognized, except for getting the next job. Then as far as the recognition is concerned, now recognition by whom? Recognition by other educational institutions and employers, including government. That is the meaning of recognition. And recognition within the country as well as in other countries. So the qualification you get from formal sources, those are always recognized. Non-formal source, somewhere recognized but not universal. For example, the experience certificate issued by your previous employer, most of the cases recognized by the next employee, but those are not universally recognized. And in case of informal, there is no recognition, obviously, because there is no assessment and no certification. Now let us see how RPL is referred to in other countries. So what's in the name? As I told you that it is RPL, not IPL. So these are the terms used in different countries. RPL is a term used in India, Australia, South Africa, and New Zealand. In USA, they call them this mechanism prior learning assessment, matter of semantics only. And in Canada, they call it assessment as well as recognition. So when we say recognition of prior learning, please remember that assessment is a necessary, a pre-state before recognition. So if there is no assessment, there can't be recognition. So Canada's term makes it very clear that it is assessment and then recognition. Then Malaysia talks about accreditation of prior experiential learning. Now look here. In Malaysia, they are talking about experiential learning only. That means this scheme, APEL of Malaysia, it is meant for those people who are acquiring skills and skills through experience. So it is bit narrower in scope than RPL that we are going to implement in India. In France, they call it VAE in the French language. But again, you can see the word experience in French language. So it is also narrower in scope. In UK, the term is APL or APEL again. But there are two different ones. Accreditation of prior learning, it involves all kind of learning from all the sources. And the second one is for accreditation of prior learning. So it is just not recognition, it is accreditation also. So these are the different differences in the mechanism and scope of this concept in different countries. Now, it is important to look at the history of origin of RPL so that we understand this thing in a better way. So, when did it start? We can recognize 3-4 phases of popularity of recognition. Before the both the World Wars, there was no formal system of recognition. Formal degrees, all those things were there, but not formal recognition of all kinds of learning. But the skills and competencies had been always recognized in an informal way throughout the history of mankind. So whenever in the history, skills and competencies came out, or the trade professions, they emerged. Since those days, these informal recognition had been there. And in those days, they used to be recognized by something called guilds. Now, guilds were basically something like professional associations, say, Association of Indian Management Schools, right? So, you can see the badges of different guilds. You can recognize some of their professions out of these these symbols or logos. Say the last one, it has some bakery items. So perhaps it is a guild of bakers. Similarly, at the other extreme of the second row, you can see those barrels, maybe, but then some other implements are also there. So maybe we can similarly at the top you have this hook as the logo of the guild. Perhaps it was related to education, right? So it is like association of professionals. So they recognize each other's competencies, right? And the validation of these skills and knowledge were through mastery or demonstration of the mastery or the guild recognizing or certifying it. And then came these world wars. After the Second World War, there were a lot of educational reforms. And the visionary leaders of those times, they recognized that the vast number of soldiers who had been deployed in this large-scale war, what they will do after the war is over, they have to be meaningfully engaged. Otherwise, these same soldiers who had fought with their lives, with their blood, with their sacrifices for the country, will become a burden on the country to earn their livelihoods. As we know, in many countries, the soldiers, retired soldiers, they become mercenaries, private armies, creating a lot of law and order situation as well as become, rebels against their country governments. So to eliminate any such, problems, the countries adopted this concept of recognition of prior learning, and to integrate the soldiers back into the society, they came up with schemes where their prior training, their skills will be recognized. As you know, that few years back in government, in our country, government came out with a kind of scheme for the youngsters who have the aspiration to join armies. That scheme was called Agniveer scheme, where they take short commissions in the army of say around, I think, 5 years. After that, what they will do? So they have been assured that whatever skills they gain through training in the army will be useful to find alternate careers, alternate livelihoods after they leave the army. So that is also sort of kind of recognition of prior learning. So this act in USA, Servicemen's Readjustment Act, popularly called the GI Bill of 1944, was the kind of, you can say that, initiation of modern day RPL concept. And then adult education. Those who are around of my age, they perhaps can remember that in their school days, how we used to make campaigns to educate adults who didn't have schooling. We used to go to different what do you say clusters of houses and used to teach the adults over there. We used to get a kit by the department, concerned department, and this was part of our some kind of SPW, socially and something useful work. So we used to do that. So this adult education also was a kind of step towards this RPL, but then adult education was never certified or assessed or certified. It was just, the objective was just to make the person write and read at the basic level. So in the next few decades, these are the developments in RPL. The formal RPL system emerged in the 70s and 80s, and it was adopted at international level when UNESCO and OECD, these NGOs, they started promoting it vigorously. And around the turn of the millennium, digital tools started appearing because as RPL became popular, the burden on assessment, those things came. So digital tools started being used, and from 2020 we can say that AI is being used in a massive scale to assess and recognize the prior learnings. Now let us see, before we understand the transformative potential of RPL, let us see what kind of benefits it has for people at different levels. So let us start with the individual level. So RPL helps to bridge the gap between informal learning and formal education system. So far, perhaps many of us or many people cannot imagine that there is a lot of learning take place beyond the formal school, college, and university system, and those learning have some real value, some real economic value, social value, right? So anybody who didn't have a formal education was lacking perhaps in earning potential, or lacking in self-esteem, or lacking in social status and recognition. So that gap would be bridged by this concept of RPL. So as already we have discussed, it involves recognition and creditization of all forms of learning. So after assessment, as I told you, that RPL has two broad steps. One is assessment of the prior learning and the certification of the learning based on assessment. So this assessment nowadays, as you know, it is done through credits. So each learning is measured in terms of credits. So I will not divert you towards that credit part. So in formal education, these credits are part and parcel of today's learning, and the learning outcomes are measured against certain learning objectives, graduate attributes, and so on. And different levels of formal learning have been, given different grades or different levels. So with RPL also, the same framework, credit framework, will be used. So it not only bridges the gap, it also identifies the skill gaps. So anybody who takes the this RPL assessment, he can understand, or he or she can find out what are the skill gaps he or she has, so that he can take a decision on reskilling and upskilling himself or herself. So reskilling means in the same skill, updating yourself. So for a gardener, if he is updating himself in the modern methods of gardening, then that is a reskilling. So upskilling goes beyond that, Then this is the very interesting part. multiple pathways to higher education opportunities. So when somebody has gained something through non-formal or informal learning, but doesn't have a formal degree, then this RPL will help him or her to join higher education, get credit for his informal and non-formal learning, and using that credit, he or she can get entry into higher education. So obviously, the intangible benefits are enhanced resume, better employment prospects, financial benefits, increased self-esteem, societal inclusion, and so on. So these are the benefits one will get at the individual level. Now let us see what kind of benefits the educational institutions will get. When I say educational institutions, it refers to the formal institutions. They also stand to gain. Like they will get student diversity. Let me tell you, in today's world, the educational institutions have a mandate to ensure inclusivity and diversity. Inclusivity means, giving equal opportunity to people from diverse, background of this society, like different genders, different socioeconomic categories, religion, and so on. So that is inclusivity. And diversity means, again, if inclusion means particularly the socio-economic part, then diversity means all kind of demographic variables. So you have to ensure that. So RPL will allow the higher educational institutions to admit those learners who didn't have the basic entry qualification in the form of formal education. For example, a candidate might not have been able to complete the graduation degree, but he or she wants to join and complete his master's. So how it is possible? Now, if he can earn sufficient credit from her existing knowledge or existing skills and use those credits to get exemption from entry requirements to the master's degree, then that is possible. So in this process, the educational institutions will get students from diverse backgrounds, not only the students who are freshly graduated, but also students, learners who have a lot of experience in terms of their skills, in terms of their work experience. So that diversity will be there. And obviously, if students come with this kind of backgrounds, they will enrich the knowledge potential of the other students, as well as their input will enrich the curriculum. Right? As I told you, that the curriculum enrichment by inputs from the RPL learners. Then larger student enrollment due to inclusion of RPL. National Education Policy 2020 mandates the higher educational institutions like university to increase enrollment to become mega institutions. The reason is government, each country has an international obligation to improve their gross enrollment ratio at different levels, at primary level, secondary level, tertiary level, like universities. So if these students, the learners who don't have otherwise formal entry requirement for the graduation or post-graduation courses, if they are allowed through this RPL mechanism, then it will improve the enrollment of the students in universities. Then universities will be able to contribute more towards socio-economic value creation. How? Because this RPL gives a flexible learning pathway to the learners, to a great number of people who are outside the formal education system. So that would be a great contribution by the universities, by the higher educational institutions. And already we have discussed that they can also contribute to social goals like access, inclusivity, and diversity. Now let us check what the employers gain to, they stand to gain from RPL. Now, they can recognize the existing skills and competencies of their employees. There are many graduates who say work in companies. They don't have master's degree, they don't have MBA degree, but through their experience, they have come to the higher levels of the management. But they feel the, kind of lack of a formal master's degree in times. So RPL will help them. And companies can also use the route of RPL assessment to find out what kind of skill gaps their existing employees have. And then take a decision to upskill them. Then, as you know, that companies organize a lot of trainings on the job kind of trainings. So those trainings were recognized within the company, not outside. Now, RPL provides a mechanism where the trainings, in-company trainings, on-the-job training programs given by a company can be recognized outside the company. So that is one benefit. Then availability of a credible database of individuals with specific skills. So when people with skills apply to recognize their prior learning, then a database is created. Right? As we shall see when we discuss the mechanism of RPL, a person has to apply to the designated assessment bodies to recognize his or her prior learning. So obviously, when they apply, a database is created. So this database is an invaluable source of recruitment for the companies. They can just ask for the data, that what kind of database you have about skilled people, and we want to recruit them. So these assessment bodies would be very happy to give those data. It is like a kind of campus placement. So if RPL is operationalized, then the company's costs, internal training and skilling costs will go down. So what they can do is that they can send their employees for RPL assessment and get them certified. So once the skill gap is discovered, they can get trained by skill sector councils or any of the bodies. So that will reduce the HR cost of the companies. So already I've talked about the placement of the employees in suitable job roles, skill gap analysis, workforce development, improve work skills, competencies. So the time taken also will be shorter, and the intangible benefits of employee self-esteem and motivation are always there. Now, industry bodies like AIMS is an industry body, an association. The other industry bodies are like a Confederation of Indian Industry, ASSOCHAM, KIIT, and so on. So, as the association of different companies or industries, they also stand to gain. How? So they will have an access to larger workforce to meet the industry standards and demands. Industry mostly, most of the time they complain that we are not getting enough manpower, enough quality manpower. So RPL is the answer for that. So like any other stakeholders, there is a seamless professional development pathways, alignment of learner skills with industry needs, both locally as well as globally. Please remember that people who get their skills and prior learning recognized, assessed and recognized by the RPL mechanism will have their certificate accepted all over the world, because these assessment and the certification will be done by accredited educational bodies like universities, like IITs, like IIMs. So their certification is valid, is accepted locally, nationally, globally. Now let us see how government stands to gain from RPL. Yeah, obviously it will reduce unemployment because it gives a chance to people with a lot of skills to get their skills recognized and certified. Then the informal learners will transition into formal workforce. There will be societal inclusion and so on. And I have told you gross enrollment ratio. For example, Government of India has a target of increasing the gross enrollment ratio from 27% to 50% by 2030. So that is another 5 years away. So if RPL is implemented effectively, vigorously, there is no reason why this target cannot be achieved. So database of individuals with specific skills, of course, as I have already told, and encourages preservation of cultural heritage by formally recognizing traditional skills and knowledge. So not only modern skills, but also the traditional skills will get recognized and certified. So that will help in preserving our cultural traditions. So I think now I need to stop here after giving this introduction to RPL, the mechanism and other things we shall discuss in the next session. So I would request moderator Ms. Sanskriti, Princess Sanskriti, to take up questions if there are questions from the audience in the chat box, and uh, if she has her own questions, then most welcome. Over to you, Sanskriti.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful and thought provoking session. You have helped us understand the true meaning and scope of RPL framework and how it can uplift learners from all walks of life. Now, we will take a few questions for our participants. I would request all the participants, if they have any question related to the topic, please drop them in the comment box below. Sir, until the participants write their questions, I myself have a question. So I want to ask, I just wrote it down. So, sir, in what ways does RPL contribute to the formalization of the informal workforce in India?
Yeah, so that belongs to the mechanism part, but I will explain very briefly over here, and in detail we shall discuss in the next session. So it is like
Yes.
this: the government will designate certain assessment centers, RPL assessment centers. So right now, the skill sector councils, there are a number of skill sector councils. They have been empowered to make the assessment of employees who are working in informal sector. For example, the people you when you go to a mall or you go to a retail store, you find a lot many people working over there. So many of them are either right from eighth standard fail to graduates. So they have been working for a long time in the industry. So their skills are not formally, they didn't have a chance to get their skills and experience formally recognized. As I told you, when the employee requests for an experience certificate, the employer obliges and gives an experience certificate. But that experience certificate is not based on any kind of rigorous assessment, or it is not recognized outside the company. So when he applies to another company, the company may recognize, okay, you have these many of experiences in this kind of role and in these kind of companies. So based on that, the person gets a better, growth in his income or in his designation and job responsibilities. But then that is restricted. It is not that experience is not universally recognized, right? So if he wants to pursue a higher education, so that experience certificate will not give him any credit. I accept he may get preference, right? Some career mark, when he sits for the entrance exam. For example, IIMs require that the candidate should have some job experience, but they don't get any credit exemption when they go for the higher education. So if a person who has been working in the retail sector wants to pursue MBA in retail management, he may gain entry into MBA retail management, but he will not get any exemption. He will not get any exemption from any subjects or any credits. But with RPL, it is possible. So he has long experience in retail management, right? So the educational institution where he applies for MBA will make an assessment and will decide from which subjects or which papers he can be exempted. So this is the mechanism. But the exact mechanism I will discuss in the next session.
Yes, sir. Sir, and as your PPT said, that it bridges the gap between informal learning and formal education system. So, sir, how one will find out that the gap is being filled?
Well, so as the example I gave you, that from informal sources, already I have told that somebody is working for a long time in the industry, or somebody is pursuing a hobby or some kind of interest, right? Suppose there is a diploma course. Somebody has been working, or somebody's hobby is pottery making, right? So there are so many skill courses in pottery, which leads to a diploma or a certificate, right? Now this person doesn't have any kind of formal training in that area, but he has long experience, right? And he makes beautiful pottery, right? Very, utilitarian kind of things. And he wants to suppose export, right? Or wants to expand his business. And suppose the foreign buyer says that, look, you don't have any formal certification. How do I know that your product meets the quality standard we are looking for? So if the person wants that, okay, if I take some kind of formal courses, it will be helpful. But you can't expect him or her to leave his trade and join a full-time program, right? And
Right,
if
sir.
he has to start from the basics again, he will feel, why? I have been working on this field for such a long time. And those who have taken admission on a full-time basis, I know much more than that, much more than them. So why not? Why I should not get recognition for that? No? So he basically applies to the applicable assessment body where his skills can be assessed. There are experts who can assess his skills, and based on the assessment, they give them credits. Just like you are pursuing MBA in full-time mode from a higher educational institution, right? So based
Yes.
on the number of hours you have spent in learning, in practicing, you get credits. So those credits after assessment are given to you. And yes, not to forget about something called academic bank of credits. So you
Right, sir.
might have been given ABC account, academic bank of account. So
Yes.
whatever credits you earn from your MBA program will be credited to that account. Side by side, if you are doing some other MOOC course, massively open online courses, or you are doing some skill course, so those credits also will go to your bank. And just
Right,
like
sir.
you withdraw money from your financial bank, you can withdraw credits. So if a certificate course requires 30 credits, and if you have already 30 or more credits in your account, you can show that, okay, I have already given your credits, give me the certificate. So they will give you certificate after assessment, but you don't have to undergo those class hours and so on.
Right, sir. So, one more question we received in the comment section. So, I will read it out. It's from Saurav. So, hi, Mr. Saurav. So, he asked, can RPL be stated as a qualification needed for employee who is underperforming?
Okay, very interesting question. Can you ask, or is it possible to find out a little bit about Mr. Saurabh, whether he's a student or an educator or an employer? Is it possible? Mr. Megawat, is it possible to, or Ms. Priya, is it possible to get a little bit more about our esteemed audience, Mr. Saurabh? Can you put a message over there asking for his background?
Yes, he can respond in the message, sir. Dr. Saurav
Okay.
can message. Yes.
Yeah, I can see the chat box, I guess. Yeah, Mr. Saurabh, if you can, I have got one more question. So, Mr. Saurabh, if you can give your background, then I would be very happy to put the put your question in context. Okay, fine. So what you have asked is that okay, he was a student of Sanskriti University, that's it, in Odisha.
Yes, sir.
Sanskriti University has been one of the pioneering universities for implementing skills and RPL. So you have asked that whether RPL be stated as a qualification needed for employees under performance. First of all, RPL is not a qualification. It leads to qualification. It helps to get or to gain further or higher qualification. So if somebody is underperforming, then the employer can definitely ask him or her to make an assessment of himself. Now, he can be assessed by the company, by the HR and so on, but perhaps that will not be very rigorous or it may not be free from bias. So the employers can use RPL. They can advise the employee that please go and apply at that assessment center, get your existing, experience, your learnings assessed and get credits for it. And utilizing that credit, you can go for higher education or reskilling or upskilling, or based on your assessment, we shall give you increment and promotion. Quite possible. And then we have got another question, which learning is more effective? I think Dr. Uh, Belallar, if I'm pronouncing name correctly. So which learning is more effective? I would say that if you are referring to, when you are saying which learning, if you are referring to formal, informal, or non-formal learning, the source is not responsible for the effectiveness. It is all about the kind of effort and motivation the learner puts actually, and the kind of facilities, the kind of input he gets. So the learning source can be anything, but the quality of learning entirely depends on the learner and the educators, as well as the education that learning system. So all three, in my opinion, are equally good. So if any other questions are there, I will check in the chat box. And thanks to all of you, those who have found this session useful. So we have a few more minutes to go if we have any further questions. So just to sum up what I said and the way the answers I gave to the questions, I will briefly summarize. So recognition of prior learning is a kind of scheme. It is revolutionary, though it has been in existence. It originated post World War II, but now there is a sense of urgency all over the world because there are certain goals, and all those goals are interlinked, like eliminating poverty, improving the skill of people, increasing the earning potential, because poverty and lack of income and all these things are the source of many social evils. So to eliminate those evils, there is a need to eliminate poverty itself, to improve the scope, the reach, and the quality of education. Plus, as we all of us know, that the future of our planet is dependent on the way or to the extent to which we are able to attain the 17 sustainable development goals, out of which education is one of the fourth SDG ideas. So people, the sustainability also depends on people's behavior, and their behavior modification depends on education. So these are all interlinked. So RPL, by formalizing, by recognizing the learning from different sources, different kind of learnings, brings that element of urgency, that element of self-esteem, that element of responsibility to a wider population. So that is the transformative potential of RPL that we shall have a discussion in the next session. So that is the summation of what I discussed. Of course, I discussed a little bit about the history part to put the things in context, and the scope of RPL in different countries also. In some countries, only the experiential part is recognized and certified. But in India, we are going to, assess and recognize all sorts of learnings from all sorts of sources. So that was from my side of Princess.
Thank you so much, sir. As we can see, the comment section, people are really liking the session and they find this session very insightful. So, as we come to the end of today's session, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to AIMS University, Dr. R.K. Patra, President of AIMS, all the secretariats for organizing this impactful platform for students and educators. A special thanks to you, Dr. Bijay Bhujabal, sir, for sharing such deep insights and motivating all of us. And of course, thank you to all the wonderful attendees for your time, curiosity, and thoughtful questions. As this is the just part one of our discussion on the RPL framework, so do stay tuned for the upcoming sessions in this series. Until that, keep learning, keep growing, and keep inspiring others. You were listening to your moderator, Princess Sanskriti. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.